So good afternoon. We last in our last session we talked about corporate social responsibility, the meaning of responsiveness, and altogether what is corporate citizenship. So a lot of fundamental concepts about the issue of the corporate social responsibility we talked about. So today we just try to finalize what is then the right corporate social responsibility and how a company how what is the right CSR activity of a firm, and how a company can correctly design that CSR activity for the company itself. Like in chapter, I think 5, we are going to talk about specifically, like from the company's perspective, how a company can design the right, appropriate CSR strategy for the firms, right? We have to differentiate clearly what's the CSR activity versus philanthropic activities, right? So simply doing good behavior of a firm doesn't necessarily CSR activity. That's the point from our business and society perspective. Before we talk about it, let us talk about how then CSR, a company's CSR activity actually related to the company's performance. Anyway, the company is not really a charity, so any types of CSR activity should be end up with a very good organizational performance, right? Without creating good performance, your CSR is nothing but just donation, which may be sometimes damaging your company's profitability. So, like relationship between CSR and corporate performance can be defined in many different ways. As you see here, there are basically 3 different perspectives on that relationship between CSR and the company's financial performance. Of course, you can expect that good behavior may lead to a very good company's financial performance. Financial performance simply means a company's like simply a profitability, right? Profit gain, or more market share, more return to your shareholders. So some group of people say that here, as the company is doing a lot of good things for social behavior, that lead to a very good company's financial performance. So just look at the causal relationship here. So good financial CSR performance leads to a very good financial performance. This will lead to a very good company's higher reputation. That's just as we saw last time, like what is the most admired companies. If you become the listed in that most admired company, then simply that actually help the firm to gain more financial profit. So that is like from perspective 1 here, that is actually they actually lead, argue their logic, right? Good behavior lead to good performance, and that lead to a very good reputation, and that logic keeps circling each other. What I call a virtuous circle here. So that means good performance always end up with all different kinds of good result. But some other people may say that it is not. The process, the causal relationship is quite working in opposite way. They say that companies should produce good financial performance first. Then they have to conduct good CSR or good corporate social behavior, and then that generate to a good good corporate reputation. So in this perspective, the first thing the company should do is making profit first. Without making profit first, doing a lot of good social behavior actually means nothing. So from perspective 1 to here, sounds like very similar logical process. However, you have to look at which goes first here. So from perspective 2, the firm should generate financial performance, good performance first, and then doing good for the society, and that will lead to the good reputation. So perspective 1, 2 does have a very different logic in their argument. And another, the last perspective here, which we try to simply from our course perspective here try to adapt. So perspective 3 is just combining perspective 1 and 2. Rather than defining which go first or later, perspective 3 here say that all of the factors here are influencing each other interactively, right? Which go first, which go later doesn't really matter, right? All factors here influencing each other, which end up with the a good social corporate reputation. So we don't need to worry about what we do first, right? Do we need to do a good financial performance first and then good CSR, or vice versa? It doesn't really matter from the perspective 3 here. So like in business study, measuring the performance is always very difficult here, right? Like you as a student, measuring your performance is not really easy, right? We can see your, say, GDP, not GDP, what is the GPA, sorry, your grade, right? So by looking at your GPA, we may say you are good students or not good students or bad students, which may be quite true. However, it doesn't tell all about you, right? So GPA doesn't tell the real you, right? So likewise, when we measure the company's performance, we just cannot look at the firm's financial gain, how much money, the profitability in one sense. That does not tell whether the firms are performing good or bad. So measuring precisely the performance is always a very challenging task in business studies. So a lot of professors, researchers try to introduce a very unique way of measuring. This is the right way to measure the firm's performance, good or bad, and so on. So we don't have any very conclusive answer yet. So out of this argument, probably would be very elusive at the moment. However, the point here is that rather than try to put some priority upon some factor here, why not firms consider performance of financial performance and CSR performance are together equally well to generate good reputation in society. So as I told you, like being on top of the list on the most admired company would actually allow a huge benefit to the firms. Once you become the number one or top in that list, that means you are good, but financially probably you are simply say money-making power in the market would be quite good, which means that you will have more and more consumers anytime. Right? So yeah, good reputation. So that's always what firms should be heading for ultimately, according to business and society perspective. You may agree or not. However, that is actually ultimately where you are going to be, and which one should be first. It doesn't really matter. So you have to do it simultaneously. So the question is, rather than which go first between these two, but more important question is then how you design the right CSR strategy to your companies. Right? That is the more important questions. So let's say that the demand from the society to the firms are increasing and increasing more and more, right? So you have to do something for the society. The question is how? What is the right way to satisfy the social need or satisfy social expectations? So that is actually the questions. As I brought the newspaper, this is a newspaper article in last Wednesday. The newspaper is about the CSR strategy of Korean major firms are developing, advancing, and become much more, say, developed, right? Previously, a lot of Korean firms did a CSR strategy, but they really couldn't tell differentiation between CSR activity and philanthropic activity. But the newspapers say that now Korean firms know how those activities are different, and a lot more firms in Korea now heading for CSR rather than simply doing the philanthropic activity. Like Korean Air, for instance. Do you know what kind of a CSR activity the Korean Air is now doing? It's a huge project of the firms, the Korean Air. The company think this CSR activity is really their CSR strategy. If you are interested in companies like social activity, probably this is a quite good example. Like Korean Air case, company invests a lot in planting trees in Mongolia. Right? So do you think that it is right strategy of the Korean Air? Or the behavior may be quite right, but not really fitting to the company's objective and company strategy? What's your ideas? Korean Air is airline companies, and planting tree in Mongolia is right CSR strategy of the firm, or not? How do you evaluate? Do you think it is quite effective to the firm in improving the firm's reputation, financial performance, and CSR performance? Do you think that the planting tree in Mongolia really helped Korean Air for all these three? Yeah? Yeah? Exactly, good opinion, right. Any other? Yeah, that's a very good point. Anyone raised? I just saw the hand here. No? So any ideas? So he said that good action, but not really effective to the firm itself. Right. I totally agree with you. So it is actually up to you whether that planting things really fitting to the firm's improvement of all this. So you have to evaluate if you are taking this course. So I partially agree with you. I mostly agree with you, but I don't know. There's no right or wrong answer upon these questions. What about Amore Pacific? Do you know what Amore Pacific is? Cosmetic companies. These companies' CSR activity is like teaching how to wear cosmetics for ladies in cancer. So when you are actually staying in the hospital for longer period of time, probably your skin condition will be very bad because of your illness as well as your long time staying in the hospital. So Amore Pacific case, the firm tried to help these patients help them to look better. So do you think the Amore Pacific's this activity would be really improving the firm's These three. Yeah? What, do you know Bingre, right? The milk maker, right? The Bingre is providing a house for poor people. So make them smile. Bingre means smile, right? So do you think that this is right, appropriate CSR strategy of the firms? Yeah? I don't know. One of the like quite interesting case here. Do you know what is HYU? Winemaker, soju, right? The HYU making Korean wine, so like best-selling wine all times, right? So I know that here a lot of you guys here enjoy drinking Korean wine, soju. So HYU is actually that soju makers, and that HYU CSR activity is like company-wide, very ambitious CSR activity is a scholarship to poor kids, children, students, providing scholarship, books, and so on. A lot of educational things for children. Do you think that this is right approach for their improvement of all this, not only in financial, social performance, but also in corporate reputation? I thought that they are trying to like attract their future customers now, right? Someday this kid will be their soju drinker in the future, so they are carrying them now, not rather than later. So that's the HYU's CSR activity and strategy. So the point is that even like few years ago, a lot of firms do their CSR by establishing some financial budget and spend it to poor people, poor neighborhood. That was it. But without no clear strategic objective. But this day, a lot of Korean firms, especially the leading Korean firms, target specific groups, specific markets, and just go for it as their CSR. So that's how the CSR activity changed from the past to the moment now. So CSR advisor maybe help company to advise like, no, that's not effective. What is more effective strategy in CSR would be this or that. So you should be able to, that advisor should be able to suggest that ideas. So the point here is, always the concern here is how company can design the right CSR strategy. So that's the point, right? So all of the firms that have working on very different industry, right? Different providing different service, different markets. So the CSR strategy should not be the same all the times. So you have to find the best CSR to your firms. But the question is how? How to design the best CSR strategy to your firms. So that is the question. So regarding this subject, a lot of papers, studies actually now introduced in the market, in the academia and so on. So probably you will be studying more specifically on this issue in your, say, like third year in corporate strategy class, maybe. But before you take that one, just have a look at briefly what is the factor that you have to concern to design the most appropriate CSR strategy. I think my friend there already told a few minutes ago in the Korean Air case, the planting tree strategy be good, but not really related to the company's core business. That's I think what he said. So number one is whatever design CSR activity you may think of, the first factor that CSR strategy fit into your firm is you have to focus on your core competence. As I said, certainly the Korean Air case, probably like CO2 emission may be the more sensitive, susceptible issue to the firm itself. So why not do something on that part? Right. Anyway, the Korean Air is transportation firms, so probably their core competences is transportation business. So reducing gas emission may be more closely related to the firm's activities in CSR. So rather than doing all very broad, generous, generic good behavior, why not focus on your focus on the thing that you can do best, and your CSR should be related to what you do best. So that's the point here. So simply setting up, I mean, if you look at the company this day, the company has a lot of department, right? Financial department, finance department, marketing department, operations department, many departments. But this day, a lot of company have a CSR department. CSR department, seriously, you will learn later, like a lot of company has IR department, or a PR department. Certainly investors relations department and public relations department. Probably these departments are dealing with how the firms have the right and good relationship with a lot of external players. A lot of conflict this day between your firms and like people outside the firms. So this department is actually dealing with a lot of that conflict issue, resolve that conflict and so on. So probably IR or PR department may do this CSR activity as well. So however, the point is that simply having CSR department doesn't solve any your CSR strategy, whether it is good or appropriate or not appropriate to your firm's activity. If you are in, say, food business, for instance, then your CSR activity should be related to your food, right? Because food, making food, providing food is something that you can do best and better than other companies. So that is actually logic here. Like KT, do you know what KT is? What's the KT abbreviation means? KT, Korea Telecom or Korea Telecom? We just say KT, right? KT. KT, Korea Telecom, probably. KT is one of the leading, say, mobile service provider in Korea. So the KT's very successful CSR activity was like providing, say, education in, say, internet, or from the basics of computer and so on to a very poor kid. Probably this activity may be related to the KT's core competencies. Core competence means kind of the best ability that your firm can do among many ability, right? Do you know what is Bridgestone? The Bridgestone is a Japanese car tire. maker. I think the Bridgestone is, I think, the first company that successfully recycled the waste tire into a new tire. So very good CSR activity, as well as that converting waste tire to a new tire. That technology also helped the firm's reputation, financial performance, and CSR performance. So your firm, CSR, should be something to your core competencies. So that is the point. And number two, think about the value chain. What is value chain? What is value chain? Very key terminology in business studies. Right? Value chain means, simply say, value chain means a set of action to operate your the set of action to deliver the product or service. Set of actions. Just look at, just think about like Coca-Cola, for instance. Coke in a bottle. So how that Coke is actually delivered to your hand. So simply somebody have to cultivate the sugar, right? And that sugar converted into a kind of a syrup. And that syrup should be mixed with, I don't know, gas, water, whatever. So what I call a bottling process. And that bottling Coke should be delivered to a wholesaler, and then retailer, and then us. Right? So that is what I call a value chain. Right? Without going through this process, we just cannot have the Coke. Right? So that is what I call a value chain. So the point here is that before you setting this CSR, you have to think about your business value chain. I just talked about like Foxconn case. What is Foxconn? They are supplier of Apple anyway. The Apple mobile phone, Apple computer, notebook, whatever. Those devices need a lot of components, and there's a Chinese company. The Foxconn provide that components. I mean, if you heard the news like a few years ago, like 19 Foxconn operator jump out of the window and kill themselves. Because, why? Because very poor working condition, right? You didn't receive a proper payment, and also you have to work, say, simply 24 hours a day, like animals. So working condition in that Foxconn was so poor, so 19 people jump out of the window and kill themselves. So who blame that accident? Who got the blame? It was not really the Foxconn, but it was Apple, right? Because the Foxconn is Apple's suppliers, right? So wrong behavior of Foxconn caused a lot of problem in Apple. It was not really the Apple's wrong behavior, it was Foxconn's behavior, but Apple received the blame. So if you are the Apple guy here, if you are also designed as an Apple guy for the CSR, you have to look at not only for your business, but your value chain activities like suppliers of your components. Right? If your suppliers like Foxconn doing kind of a very malpractice for the providing the components, then you have to do correct them to do the right things. So that is the way how you, so actually let them doing good, let them creating more better working condition, better treatment of the employees. That's maybe your job as the CSR. So actually, when this accident happened, Apple tried to do something for the company. So what Foxconn did was that they increased the salary a little bit, and then they did build a huge fence, right, to prevent employees jumping out of the window. So, which is not really quite right. The remedy for preventing that kind of a poor working condition. But anyway, you have to do something good, not only for yourself, but for your suppliers as well. And number 3 is pretty much very also important implication and lesson when you design your CSR. Do what customer want. Never forget, you should provide what they want, right? Your good behavior never sacrifice what customers want. It's a very classic good example is this one. Do you know what body shop is? What is body shop? This is body shop. This is the body shop, and the lady next to it is the founder and the CEO of the body shop. Her name is Anita Roddick, right? Anita Roddick. I mean, she just passed away a few years ago because of, I think, cancer. But how many of you here really crazy about body shop product? Yeah, is it good? Really? But not that many, right? Because this day we have a lot of very good cosmetic products other than body shop. But let me tell you, like even 10 years ago, for instance, a lot of people crazy about body shop. Probably the quality of the product was good, but also the reputation and the image of the body shop was also the good. The body shop was the company that really the kind of company of the CSR frontier, showing this is what CSR at the time. What body shop did, why the body shop earned worldwide acclaimed a good reputation. When you actually use the cosmetic products, it is not just introduced in the market, right? You have to, the product itself go through 1,000 times of animal testing, right? So make sure that the product is safe to yourself. So Body Shop announced that we are not going to that animal testing. Do you like it? So your product didn't really go through the animal test. She's more like animal rights activist. So she hates testing animal for the benefit of human consumers. So that's why the Body Shop stopped animal testing. But at the time, like 10 years ago, it was quite a shocking and sensational event. Wow, this company is very good company. Another good things of this company, actually she is kind of pretty much like kind of a philanthropic figure. She care not only the human, I mean the animal right, but also she concerned a lot about like family violence. So a lot of profit of the body shop go through the preventing or making law regulation to prevent the family violence. Also, the body shop did a lot of things for AIDS campaign, right? How to prevent AIDS, how to recognize more what AIDS is to other people, especially people in Africa. So AIDS campaign, the body shop did a lot of things. And also the body shop did a lot of helping orphan by war and so on. So a lot of good campaign for helping a orphan and very poor kid. So the body shop itself already making a lot of money by doing that many good behavior. So widely welcome not only the social activists in at the beginning of the year 2000, but also a lot of consumers. Right? People love these companies because of a lot of good things, good conduct of the body shop. However, that good reputation didn't last longer because somewhere in mid, say, year 2005 and afterward, a lot of competitors coming up. We don't need to name it. What competitors to the body shop? Aveda may be the competitors and a lot of other competitors. So because of the competitors, the body shop keep shrinking their profit, but still maintaining their CSR spending. So the companies get shrink, and now the market share of the firm is not really that much powerful. So the point is, no matter how you do good for your society, you should not ignore what customers want. Anyway, what customers want, what customers expect from this cosmetic firm is not, of course, they may want good social behavior, but they want better product, better service. But probably the company is slightly step away from that what customers want, right? So even if you are doing CSR, you should not be company oriented here. You should be also shouldn't stay away from the customer oriented mindset. So unlike body shop like Doosan or HP actually show kind of a how can you say very representative CSR activities that not only from the society and community perspective, but from what customers want. Like Doosan's case, they built huge, say, water conversion system in Middle East. Like water conversion system means like from kind of a system from salt water, 바닷물, to drinking waters. Requires a huge system, mechanisms, and constructions. And the company Doosan set up that huge facilities in Middle East, CSR, as well as that's related to what Doosan can do best. And also Hewlett Packard, like HP, so I think the kind of foremost leading companies in teaching, improving IT literacy, computer skills to less developed countries and so on, right? So number 3 and 1 are rather related. The point is you should look at what you can do best. Also, you never forget what customers want. if you keep this in your mind, probably you maybe you may like come up with like best CSR strategy rather than just doing some kind of philanthropic activities. But it is quite easier to be said than really we can do, right? Because like this day, 5 to 6% of your profit mostly goes to R&D, right? Research and development. So when you actually make money, and the 5 to 60% should go to research and development, and almost like 1 to 2% of your profit goes to CSR activity. Huge portion of money simply means that this money should go to the shareholders, but rather than going back to the shareholders, you should spend the money for something good. So the issue of how you spend that money wisely is quite critical. If you spend wrong way, your shareholders will be upsetting very much. So we just talked about like what is like CSR, how to conduct CSR. But mostly this CSR activity is actually targeting like satisfying some people outside the firms, mostly what I call a kind of a community and society. After the break, we are going to talk about then what other actually group of people outside the firms other than just communities, right? Say this is the firm, this is the company, right? You are the CEO on top of the firm. So you have to concern your people inside the organization. You have to concern people outside the organization here, right? Mostly CSR activity targeting some kind of a community out there, probably your potential, say, customers, but not really directly influencing your firm's operations. But excluding that community, what other people or group of people outside the firm which may directly affecting your firms? What you call stakeholders. Right? How stakeholders are different from the shareholders, and why also maintaining good relationship with the shareholders are so important. Probably the customers will be also some group of people outside your company. So we know where, right? You have to take good care of your customers, right? But sometimes this day, you have to very good care of, say, mass media, suppliers, or your business partners, right? It is not really a time for you guys only caring customers. You have to care all other, what I call it, stakeholders equally. So why and how? So that is that kind of thing that we are going to discuss next after the break. Okay. So they are the fundamental like consideration like that you have to contemplate all the times before you designing the CSR. But what matters most also apart from that is that to whom you deploy that CSR strategy. That is also another question, right? Again, this is your firms. So top management here and the employees here. So CSR, undertaking corporate social responsibility means that the company top management delivers some very good behavior to your people, of course, providing good working condition and to let them be happy, but also a lot of a group of people outside the organization there. So your CSR activity also provided to all these guys. The point is that to whom you are actually delivering your CSR strategies. Are you delivering a particular designed CSR to this one or to that one? The point is, there is no like generic or broad general CSR strategy that apply to all of this one. Of course, it is actually up to you, right? Like philanthropic behavior, for instance, that creating a lot of good image by all these people. But when you say strategy, from also strategic perspective, your provision of CSR should be targeting some specific group here, right? Just like there are 1,000 different customers, their needs and wants are all different. All these different group outside the organization want different styles, ways of CSR. So your, say, CSR strategy should be differentiated all the times, targeting a particular group of people. So to whom, again, you are delivering your CSR strategy? So that's the question. But the question is then, how can you define your group of people outside the organization that may be influencing your firm's operation, decision making, even profitabilities? Of course, this inside the guys here, the most important guys, employees, what I call, to your firm's operation. Plus also the customers here, major group of people outside the organization, also very important to you, but excluding these two, you should not ignore all other group of people. So that is what I call a stakeholders. So if you look at the dictionary, the stakeholders is in Korean 이해관계자. 이해관계자. So stakeholders means, so in chapter 3, we are going to talk about then what are the stakeholders, who are within that group of the stakeholders, and how can you tell which one of the stakeholders in the future will be impacting your firm's organization? We can see some of the examples. Some of the firms totally destroyed, collapsed by mismanaging some stakeholders. Right? The stakeholders are not customers. They were very good at customers, but some other stakeholders simply ignored. But because of that, the company finally finished their business. So who are actually out there? Who are the most influential or will be influential? And preparing how to responding to them in aggressive way, defensive way, coordinating way, or cooperative way, or even coercive way, or how can you react to the stakeholders, people outside the organization? So that's actually the point of this chapter. Okay. So in business study, there's kind of what I call a stakeholder analysis. You think that you know well who are out there, but it is not actually. A lot of people, a lot of group of people, and a lot of emerging new group of people, you never know how they will impact your firm's operation in strongly negative ways. So you have to predict who will be damaging your reputation in the future, so you have to act first, right? So that is what I call, to find out that one is what I call a stakeholder analysis. So briefly I will talk about that one as well. So what is stakeholders? As you see here, 이해관계자, right? Lots of individuals or a group of individuals with, as you see here, multitude of interest, expectation, demands upon what you are doing. So the point is that you should accommodate what they want, right? Strategically and effectively. So when you say stakeholder, stake means, some people say it is a share. So who are actually stakeholders? What is shareholders? What is shareholders? 주주, yeah. Yeah, ownership, somebody who has the ownership of the firms. So if you say buy shares, 주식, from the 증권회사, right, security bank, say 10 stocks of the Samsung Electronics, then you are stakeholders. But particularly we call you shareholders, right? So shareholders, 주주, is part of stakeholders. Right? 이해관계자. So when you say stakeholders, 이해관계자, what does that 이해 means? We describe here in the textbook, 이해 means, stake means, as you see, interest, right? But interest does mean a lot here. 3 types of interest. As you see here, literally interest itself. So your money, profit involved. So if you put your money for the firm's, say, a share, then your money, since you are having the firm's share, so your money there. So if the company perform poor, then you're simply losing your money. So your interest here means financial interest. But apart from that, like financial perspective, there's kind of a interest regarding to the right. 권리, right? Kind of 이해, interest in terms of right. 2 types of right here: legal right and moral right. I'm sorry, I just a little bit messed up here. So the ownership means when you actually put your money for the firms. Right, so that is actually your money-wise interest is actually involved in the firm. So your interest may be related to the ownership. That interest means simply your preference. Just interest itself, preference. You like the firm's product, or you like the service for that product. You are, say, loyalty customers from that companies. Then your, say, my all device, electronic device, are from, say, Samsung. So that means your interest in that companies are so huge. So if the company's, say, service, after-sales services is very poor, then simply you cannot do really work well. So that kind of interest here, what you say, preference, taste, whatever. So right means very important this day. Mostly the right here means here simply say right to claim some of your kind of a privacy or equal treatment or fair treatment and so on. And moral right means kind of a right to express something. So the point here is that out of these 3, the interest in terms of right with respect to legal right and moral rights are getting larger and larger and powerful. Simply say that employees, yes, an employee here, if you are, say, working hard 24 hours a day without receiving any, then you have you are stakeholders, right? You have right to say something. Hey, give me some equal treatment and payment and treat me like human and whatever. So that kind of right? You can say something to the management here. So mostly this right can be given to the employees as well as customers and inside and outside the organization, all the people. Or say, if the company is doing bad, right? BP spilled thousands of crude oil in, say, Mexican Gulf a few years ago. So you have a right to say something bad upon the firm's things. So actually, BP didn't do nothing for a while after that spillover problem in Gulf area, Mexican Gulf area. So interest means not only the financial, say, involvement, but also kind of a right of your participation, right of your saying something, and so on. So that means customers are not the only guy you have to concern about stakeholders. Activists, of course, social activists, and even your suppliers. Like the Foxconn case, for instance, the major supplier of the Apple. If they do bad, then Apple can say something on the firms to correct their wrong behavior, right? So everyone outside or inside organization does have these types of interest can be part of the stakeholders. So then many stakeholders. We know what customers. We know what community, what competitors. Competitor as well, your stakeholders, right? Their interest is your interest as well, right? Their prosperity, like competitors' prosperity actually means you are diminishing in business. So competitors and yourself also related to some extent, employees as well. And special interest group, mass media especially, interest group. So somebody here having 3 different types of interest affecting your firms here, your company, all together, we call a interest group, stakeholders. So the point here is that since you have many different types of interest groups like this one, so many different types of stakeholders, so you should not equally considering strategically to your business. So that's why firm should choose who are the most important critical stakeholders. Right? Like DuPont case, what is DuPont? It's a American company producing lots of chemical products, like with the more than hundreds years old, long time, very old, successful companies. So since it is in the chemical industry, so very kind of a socially sensitive industry, like chemical one, right? Environmentally, community-wide, and so on. So, however, certainly we can imagine that the firm does have a lot of stakeholders, but the company say we only care this for. So, which means that you have to pay attention to a very selective group, not all group. You just cannot manage them all. So that's why DuPont case, they only select all these 3 the stakeholders. So again, we talk about later then how can you choose the most important stakeholders to your firm. So that is actually a difficult question to answer. Um, I'll talk about later, right? Very classic example. One of the Korean like food maker simply ignore, say, media. So the Korean food company say our products fine. We produce high quality. All of our customers actually like us, and we save the nation, Korea, right? Especially when Korea was in kind of a suffering starvation in 60s and 70s. So whatever they claim, media here, the food companies say, don't need to respond to them. But because of the media, actually, the company collapsed. Right? So the point is that which one you care most, pay attention most, is kind of a strategic decision. Right? Otherwise, you are from maybe in chaos someday. Okay, before we look at that some mismanagement case of the stakeholders and the failure of the firms by that, we are going to talk about then how the concept of stakeholder management actually evolved. It's very important academically from here to there. So time's up. We are going to talk about this one on Friday, right? So briefly talk about this one Friday, and also why selecting the right stakeholders group so important to your firm's business, and we will talk about that one. And then how can you choose the most important stakeholders group? So we are going to talk about that one. Again, a lot of analysis in business study is kind of a process of combining quantitative and qualitative together, right? So you use a lot of framework theory, but also when you use that one, you need to use your own judgment and intuition and so on, right? So just make sure that when you talk about kind of a framework, you need to also have your very creative imagination, judgment, and so on. So we are going to talk about that on Friday.